Alright guys, we've made it to Friday. The finale of this championship season is tomorrow, but for the purposes of this video, we will be focusing on all the latest transfer rumours currently going around the championship. And let me tell you, we've got a lot to go through today. As always, if you're going to enjoy, make sure to drop a like. 500 likes will be massively appreciated. Before we get into any of the rumours, let's first of all talk about some managerial stuff. So first of all, we've had confirmation that Swansea have gone ahead and appointed Alan Sheehan as their permanent first team manager. He had been in an interim role following the dismissal of Luke Williams. Obviously he stepped up from that assistant role and he has been given the permanent job, obviously with the view to go into next season. Swansea fans, I'd be interested to get your take on this one in the comments down below. Obviously he's done a fantastic job since taking over on a temporary basis, 7 wins in 12. I do always think there's a little bit of jeopardy when a caretaker boss like Sheehan, when you've stepped up from that assistant role, actually gets given the main job on a full-time basis. We've seen quite a few examples of this happening in the championship in years gone by. It's probably got more of a miss rate than hit in terms of these sorts of appointments in the past, but that's no saying that this one won't be a successful appointment. The biggest test for Swansea will probably be when they do go on that first bad run of form, which they inevitably will do at some point next season. Does the board then have the backbone to stand by a manager like that? Or will they then revert to type and look to go after, a typical sort of project manager that you'd associate sort of a club like Swansea going after? I don't know, it'll be a very interesting one, I think. And then we've also had the crazy news coming out of QPR that Matteo Cuentes won't be taking charge of their final game of the season because he's been placed on gardening leave. This story really has developed rapidly over the last sort of 48, 72 hours. QPR fans, I'd be fascinated to get your perspective on this one in the comments down below. Obviously, it broke fairly recently that Cifuentes had some disagreements with the club's chief executive. This has sort of been the fallout of that, it would seem. There's also been a lot of conflicting reports coming out recently about how high or not Cifuentes is on West Brom's managerial wish list for next season. It's all a little bit of a mess and not the ideal sort of way you want to be ending a season, really, is it? There's some of the latest managerial talk. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into the transfer rumours. So in last time's video, we spoke quite a bit about Jamie Vardy, how he'd be leaving Leicester at the end of the season. A couple of championship clubs had been thrown into the mix as interested. A reunion, perhaps to Sheffield Wednesday, or maybe even a move to Wrexham. Well, since that point, conflicting reports have come out claiming that Vardy does indeed want to stay in the Premier League, and now Wolves are being tipped as one of the front runners for his signature. I'm sure there'll be plenty more on Vardy over these next few weeks until there is a final decision that has been made over where he is signing next, but at the moment it looks like he wants to stay in the Premier League. But speaking of Wrexham, another Premier League star that they are going after is Johnny Evans, who is set to become a free agent at the end of the season. Now, Wrexham are going to be one of the busiest clubs in this upcoming transfer window. I've got absolutely no doubts about that, because for a club like Wrexham, the aim for next season probably won't even be just survival. They'll want to push the barrier even further than that. It's already been speculated that the club are going to throw a lot of money into it this summer, which you'd expect them to. And so far as they have risen through the Football League, these are the sorts of signings that they have been making. So Johnny Evans to Wrexham, it's definitely a possibility. A bit of Leeds United transfer news. It looks like Real Betis are going to be going back in with an offer for Leeds United's Matteo. Now, they were sniffing around back in the January transfer window. Towards the end of that window, they had a £10 million offer that was rejected by Leeds. Going off the latest reports, it's claimed that the Spanish outfit will be looking to up that offer ever so slightly in this summer window. And Leeds, I suppose, have got a bit of a decision to make here with the 21-year-old. Obviously, someone with bags of potential, but someone who's only started in 11 championship matches for them this season. And you'd imagine going up to the Premier League, his opportunities would be similarly quite limited, especially with how much money they're likely to invest over the summer. In an ideal world for Leeds, you could definitely see the benefit of maybe him going out on loan somewhere. But if the finances are right for this sort of deal, the club could be willing to play ball. We'll have to wait and see with that one. Leeds United fans, what would you do in that situation? It looks like Hull City, Steven Elate will be departing over the summer. He's got admirers both in England and Spain, but seems like the player would prefer a move to La Liga. You've got the likes of Valencia and Getafe who are reportedly interested. It'll be interesting to see how much Hull would get for the 26-year-old. They signed him on a free, I'm pretty sure, in the summer, didn't they? For the sake of Hull City, I think regardless of what league they're playing playing in next season. I think there probably is going to be quite a big overhaul of that squad once again. I think there's going to be plenty of transfer activity with the Tigers. West Ham are trying to convince Burnley CJ Egan Riley to join them at the end of the season upon his contract at Turf Moor expiring. Now, last month, Scott Parker said that he was confident that the defender would sign a new contract with the club, especially with their promotion to the Premier League now being confirmed. But there's no denying that West Ham definitely have a pull. And if the Hammers are really willing to push the boat out for the 22-year-old, offer him, a really attractive contract, that could be tough to turn down. Burnley, it would seem, are still working hard behind the scenes to try and get him tied down for a new deal in the Premier League next season, but as things stand, he could leave the club on a free this summer. It's also a very similar situation that Josh Brownhill finds himself in at the moment, with his contract at Burnley set to expire. Once again, the club keen to keep him on board, but he's got offers, it would seem, from elsewhere in the Premier League, or certainly interest at this point in time, with both West Ham and Everton being quite long-term admirers of the Burnley midfielder. Once again, another really good season for Brownhill in the Championship. 16 goals he's got from midfield. He'd be a real blow if they were to lose him. Another midfielder that Everton are looking at the moment is Sheffield United's Gus Harmer. Now, what the future holds for him will probably depend on whether or not Sheffield United gain promotion via the playoffs. It'll be much easier to keep hold of him if they're playing Premier League football next season. He's just won the Championship Player of the Season award. You'd imagine that would add a little bit to his value as well. The good news for Sheffield United is that he is under contract with the club until 2027, and so even if worst comes to worst, they lose in the playoffs, they'd still be able to command a really decent fee for him, you'd imagine. But Everton, one of the clubs that's upping their interest in him right now. Blackburn Rovers are expected to make an opening offer of around about £500,000 for Manchester United youngster Dan Gore, although according to the latest reports, that offer would be rejected by United, who would be looking for a little bit more for the midfielder if they are to cash in. He's a 20-year-old midfielder who has been really highly rated in the United academy. Unfortunately, injuries have sort of stunted his progression in recent years. They've certainly limited his game time that he's had while out on loan in the EFL with clubs like Port Vale and most recently Rotherham United. But by all accounts, he is someone who is being heavily looked at by Blackburn Rovers right now. And going off the latest reports, it seems like Birmingham are working on a deal to try and bring Che Adams back to St Andrews. Blues fans, I'd be interested to get your take on this one down below, obviously. Last time he was in a Birmingham shirt, you're going all the way back to the 2018/19 Championship season. Absolutely fantastic that year, scored 22 goals for what was a pretty average Birmingham side, really. Last time he was in the Championship was last season when he was playing for Southampton. He scored 16 league goals that season as they were promoted. He's most recently, and this season, been playing in Italy for Torino, where he scored 9 goals in Serie A this season. He is under contract until 2027 in Italy, but Birmingham definitely have the sort of finances to lure players like Adams back to England. Whether or not he'd be their top striker target, though, I guess we'll have to wait and see. We're definitely going to get a lot of big news stories breaking over these next few weeks and months regarding Birmingham, aren't we? But that's one of the first big ones to pop with them, and Blues fans would be interested to get your take on that down below. John Mousinho has certainly made it no secret that he'd like to sign Rob Atkinson back on a permanent basis for next season at Pompey, but any sort of finances for that deal are yet to be worked out, obviously. Bristol City have got their full focus on tomorrow's match against Preston, and then potentially going into what would be a massive playoff campaign. But for Portsmouth, they'd definitely be keen to take Atkinson back for next season. He's still under contract with Bristol City until 2026, but after the defenders made a really good impression while out on loan in the second half of the season at Pompey, you'd imagine that club is already doing the sort of groundwork for potentially getting him back for next season. It's been reported that both QPR and Milwall have been keeping tabs on Middlesbrough's Anthony Dijksteel, who is set to become a free agent in the summer, with both clubs looking to bolster up their defensive line. Certainly in the case of QPR, with it looking more than likely that Jimmy Dunn's going to have a lot of potential suitors in this transfer window. Understandably, they're being linked with a lot of right-sided defenders right now. Another option being looked at by QPR in that position right now is former defender Darnell Furlong, who's obviously currently with West Brom. He's under contract with the Baggies until 2027, but with the right offer, that could see him leave him. Swansea have agreed a deal to sign Kilmarnock youngster Bobby Wales, and they have beaten off quite a bit of Championship competition, it would seem, for his signature as well. Now, while his contract at Kilmarnock is set to expire this summer, Swansea are still due to pay a bit in compensation because of the player's age. That fee in compensation believed to be anywhere from sort of 300 grand to 350 grand. But a promising youngster nonetheless, who Swansea will look to develop. But guys, there you have it. Those are some of the latest transfer rumours currently going on around the Championship. If you've seen anything else, make sure to get it in the comments down below and we'll give it a mention in the next video. Obviously, plenty going on in the Championship right now. We've got the final day tomorrow. After that, we'll have all the drama of the playoffs to unpack as well. It's all happening in the Championship right now. If you're not already, make sure to stick around and do subscribe. But apart from that, thank you very much for tuning in and I'll see you all in the next one.